I'm so sorry if you can hear the congestion in my nose. I apologize. Hello everyone. So it is that time of the month where we go through our reading wrap up. So today's one is May's reading wrap up. So as you guys know, I got this idea from Belle Therese from Belle's Library Books on YouTube and on TikTok and on Instagram and everything. She likes to throw some statistics at you, and I love that idea because I think it's a really good way to just sort of like give you a quick overview of what my reading looked like without going into the nitty-gritty of it all. So well, it is kind of the nitty gritty, but like you get more of a wrap up of it than me talking about each book specifically, which I go on and do anyway. Without further ado, let's get into it. So this is my May reading wrap up. So the first thing here is just some high level statistics. Got the number of books I read this month were 7. My average rating was 4.25 stars. The number of pages I read was 2,480, and my predominant format was physical books. I did read, I think I had like 2 books on ebook, like on my Kindle, and 1 audiobook. And then we move on to genres. So you can see I read a lot of dark romance this month, which has been really nice because dark romance is what got me back into reading in the first place. So it was really, really nice to kind of go back to that. 1 romantasy, which is a little bit different for me this year. I feel like every month so far this year has been a lot of romantasy or fantasy, but I only read 1 this month, which is crazy to me because I also had so much fantasy on the TBR. I think I had like 5 or 6. But yeah, I just didn't read that many of them. I think I kind of was on a little bit of a burnout with romantasy from April because I read so much romantasy in April, so it was kind of a lot. 1 romantasy, 2 romance books, and 4 dark romance books, which is just, I'm so happy about that. Now we move on to my ratings. Now, I had my first ever DNF, and I'm gutted to say it because we will get into it, but I had my first ever DNF. This is the first time I've been reading a book where I'm like, I cannot continue reading this book. But other than that, like a fairly good month of reading, like most of them were 3 stars and up. So we had 2 5-star books, 1 4.25 star book, 1 4-star rated book, 1 3-star, 1 2-star, and 1 DNF. And then we move on to tropes. Now, there is some that you won't be able to see on this, but I like to give you guys a little bit of an overview of the different types of tropes that I read over the month. So the top 5 I have is 5 books had forced proximity, 5 books had he falls first, 3 books had age gap, 3 books were a mafia based one, and captive/captor had 2. Like 2 books had that trope in it. Now moving on to the books themselves. So the first one, if you guys saw the video, my book bestie picked the TBR, and we had 12 books on the TBR. Now I read 7, and every single one of the books that I read last month were on the TBR, so I'm super proud of myself for that. I didn't end up getting through all of them like I hoped because the week I had off, or the 2 weeks I had off from uni, I don't know what was going on, but I was really struggling. So anyway, I digress. The first book that I read was Electric Idol by Katee Robert. I forgot how much I loved her writing. If you guys saw it in my last reading wrap up, my one for April, I read Court of the Vampire Queen by Katee Robert, and I was saying that I love her writing, and I've forgotten how much I love her writing, so I was so happy when Book Bestie put this on the TBR so I could delve back into this world specifically because I really love this series. I know she's really well known for Neon Gods, however I do think that Court of the Vampire Queen has beaten her like records of sales for Neon Gods, but this was really, really good. I love this. I rated this 5 stars, and I got a 2.5 chili spice because it does have some BDSM elements in it, which absolutely love. This is a Psyche and Eros retelling. You've got Marriage of Convenience, a hierarchy takedown, and like I said, it's a retelling or reimagining of Psyche and Eros and their love story. Essentially, in this book, I can tell you what this one's about because even though it's the second book in the Dark Olympus series, they're interconnected standalone, so they're not, I'm not going to give you spoilers from telling you what it's about. So essentially, Psyche is the daughter of Dimitri, and she's really beautiful and has this beautiful personality, and she's physically stunning as well, and Aphrodite just dislikes her so much, and like she always has because she's always disliked Dimitri. or Demeter. I don't know how, I always say Dimitri, but I know that's wrong. But anyway, one night at a party, Psyche runs into Eros, who is covered in blood and bleeding, and she offers to help him, and on their way back to the party, a photo of them gets snapped, and they look like they're having a super intimate moment where they almost kind of were, you know, you could feel the tension, they wanted to have a kiss. But Aphrodite is not happy about that, and she sends Eros to literally take her heart and deliver it to Aphrodite. Eros is Aphrodite's son, and she uses him as, like, it says raised to be his mother's knife in the dark. So literally she just sends him off to go and like beat people up, unalive people I should say. I love this book. I've even gone out and bought Wicked Beauty, which is the third book in this series, because I'm so excited to read it. I'm really annoyed that I bought it after doing my TBR for June, but that's fine. If I get through most of the books, then I will let myself read it. But I'm really like so happy that I read this, so glad that I finally picked it up and read it. Thank you Book Bestie for putting this one on the TBR, because it was amazing. Love it. Highly recommend this series and anything from Katee Roberts so far. Also, I should mention that Electric Idol is a dark romance as well. Next up, we read Her Soul for Revenge, which is the, I don't know why I still have that, which is the second book in the Souls trilogy by Harley Laroux. I, again, love this series. So happy that Book Bestie put this one on the TBR. I have read Her Soul to Take and this one now. You can see I annotated it. I have got to go in and like proper do my annotations, which will be done this weekend, because I actually have just sold a copy of Her Soul to Take and Her Soul for Revenge, an annotated copy. So getting that done this weekend and sending that off on Monday or Tuesday. But I'm obsessed with this book, obsessed with this series. I'm super excited to read Soul of a Witch. And I've heard that book 4, there's going to be a book 4 coming out. So it'll be very interesting to see where Harley Laroux goes with it, because I have a feeling that books 1, 2, and 3 all kind of follow the same timeline, just based on what I've read for Her Soul to Take and Her Soul for Revenge. They do follow the same timeline, but they follow different people and what they're up to at that time. So I have a feeling Soul of a Witch is going to be the same, just from a different character, which is fine because you don't get a lot of insight as to what they're doing. And also the plot line, as much as it's very similar, also feels different enough that you do not feel like you're reading the same book, which I loved. So in this one, it follows Juniper and Zane. Juniper was sacrificed to a god when she was very young, but she managed to escape. And Zane is a demon who offers her a deal, her soul, and he will help her for revenge. But eventually her soul isn't enough and he wants everything from her. And yeah, it's actually quite a beautiful love story, especially for how damaged Juniper is and everything that she's been through. And you do find like a lot of trauma healing. And yeah, it's a really good book, considering it's super spicy and there's so much going on, but it still hits some really deep topics about trauma and healing. And I highly recommend this series, highly recommend this book. Again, you can kind of read these out of order as well, because they take place at the same time. So if you want to read Her Soul to Take first, read that first. If you want to read this one first, read this one first. This does have a little bit of a earlier story than Her Soul to Take. Part of this does take place before Her Soul to Take. I think Juniper was 15 or 16 when she first got sacrificed, and you got to see that in this book. So it does run a little bit earlier than Her Soul to Take, but you could still read them in order of publication, or you can read them out of order. Well, these two anyway, you could swap them, that's fine. So my rating on this was a 4.5 star. It was a 4.5 star, and it also got a 4 chili spice, because the first spicy scene that you get between Juniper and Zane, so good. This again has some BDSM tropes in it as well. So did the first one. That was something that was very prominent in the first one, and it's very prominent in this one too, which I love as a BDSM girly. Love it. So yeah, 4.5 star and a 4 chili spice rating. Okay, next up we read Icebreaker, and Book Bestie put this on the TBR because he's read this one and I hadn't yet, and he's like, I want to know your thoughts and opinions. So I read it. I read this book in a day. It was 400, it says 447 pages, but I don't actually think it's that long. it's 429 pages. I'm not sure why it says 447 pages. I might have got that off Goodreads, but that's fine. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I absolutely love hockey romances now. The more I read them, the more I enjoy them. I really did like this one. It's obviously a hockey romance. You've got rivals to lovers, forced proximity, and found family. The love story between these two is really quite sweet. Even though it does take a long time for the actual like romance to kick in, there is smut and spice beforehand. I'm so sorry if you can hear the congestion in my nose. I apologize. There is spice and smut beforehand, but the actual like romantic side of it does take a while to kick in, but it's still such a good read. I have heard so many mixed opinions on this book, and I agree with the secondhand embarrassment. Okay, the Uber scene, girl, if you know, you know, but it was still really good. I really, really enjoyed this book. It was super spicy. It's funny because I think I mentioned that Collide by Belle Carver is supposed to be Icebreaker's hotter older sister. I think I actually prefer this more than Collide. I think I rated this higher as well. I think that the stakes of this was a little bit higher, and that's probably just like a personal preference that I prefer a higher stakes book. But so you have Anastasia, it is Anastasia, is it? Yeah. You have Anastasia, who is a figure skater, and she's trying to get into the Olympics. And you have Nate, who is captain of the ice hockey team. And his team have been doing pranks with other schools, other colleges, all those types of things, and something goes wrong and the ice hockey rink gets destroyed and they end up with a swimming pool instead of an ice hockey rink. And at this particular college, at UCMH, they have two ice rinks, one for the figure skaters and one for the ice hockey team. So when the ice hockey team's rink goes down, they have to go and use the figure skating rink, and Anastasia's not happy about it. To be honest, neither is Nate really, but Nate fully understands that it's his team's fault that the ice rink is no longer in operation, and tries to smooth things over with Anastasia, and she's like, go away, I don't want anything to do with you, and it kind of goes from there. I'm not going to tell you anything else about that, but yeah, it's really, really beautiful once you do get to the point of, like, once they kind of set aside their differences. It's a really, really good story, and I actually really enjoyed this more than a lot of the other ice hockey books I've read so far. This is going to offend some people, and I'm really sorry. I've just decided and realized for myself, I am going to read one more book by her and then I'll decide, but I genuinely think small town romance is just not for me. I've read 2 now. I have the 3rd one on my TBR for this month, and I am going to read it because I just want to give it a shot. But I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. I like her writing style. I don't like small town romances, and I don't like third act conflicts that result in a breakup, and that has this. I was super excited to read this book because bull riding, cowboy, like, that's awesome. I was so excited to see that dynamic and see how it unfolded and get an insight into that world. And as much as we did get an insight into that world, I feel like we could have delved deeper into that. But essentially in this book you have, I think his name's Rhett, pretty sure it's Rhett. So you have Rhett, who is your bull rider cowboy, and you have Summer, who is Rhett's agent's daughter, and he has a publicity slip about milk, and he is getting older and his agent's worried that he's going to lose sponsors, so he sends his daughter to be a babysitter. The story kind of goes from there. Her job is to sort of help clean up his image and make sure that he has no other mishaps and things like that. And yeah, the story goes from there. Now, the reason why I didn't enjoy this much, majorly because of the third act conflict and the breakup. Like, I think I had like this much left and I wanted to DNF it, and I was like, nah, just push through the last 20 pages, who knows, maybe it'll be really good. And then the epilogue was like the standard epilogue that you usually get. I was just like, I need something different. Like, I can't keep doing books like this, and especially small town. Like, for me, I don't think small town romances are my thing. They're just not my vibe. They're not my bread and butter. I don't enjoy them. I've read 2 and they've gotten okay ratings from me so far, but I'm going to read Heartless and see how that goes, because I know everyone says that Heartless is a really, really good book, But again, I don't know about this. I rated it 2 stars and it got a 1.5 chili spice from me. And although the best part of this book was the cowboy hat rule, love that, absolutely love that, because I have heard that before, not even from like TikTok or anything. I've just heard like the cowboy hat rule, which is where you wear the hat, you ride the cowboy. I have heard that because I've been to a rodeo before and people have made that joke. So that was probably the funniest part in this book. I really enjoyed that part, but other than that, this didn't have a lot of redeeming qualities for me, and I'm so sorry. I know that everyone loves Elsie Silver, but it just was not for me, and I'm so sorry about that. Okay, next up we have 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. This is a novella for the Crowns of Nyaxia series. This goes in between The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I always get that back to front. And Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This goes in between that. I didn't know that when I read the duet and skipped over this. Book Bestie was listening to The Serpent and the Wings of Night on an audiobook, and it continued on and he got to listen to this as well. And he kept saying to me, you need to read it, you need to read it, it's a really beautiful story. And he's not wrong, it is a really beautiful story. I am really annoyed at myself because I haven't continued on to the next duology in the series because I wanted to read this first. I'm really annoyed at myself that I stopped myself from continuing on with the series because I don't feel like this is super important. I feel like I didn't care for these characters. Even in Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, I didn't care for the characters, even though they were quite prevalent in that particular book. I don't feel like I cared too much for them. In saying that, it is a beautiful story. It's just not something that I feel you need to read to continue on with the series. So if you're feeling the way that I felt and you're like, oh, I can't continue because I need to read this book, just go on and read it and come back to this whenever you want. I do recommend listening to this via Audible, or like listening to this via an audiobook. I found it a lot easier to get through. I listened to books on 2 times speed, so this took like 2 hours. I think I cleaned my kitchen and did a couple of other little things and I finished the book. So I did enjoy it. It's still got a good rating from me. I only rate novellas 4 stars max, and this got a 3-star rating from me. So I do think it is worth the read. The story and the plot of everything that goes on in this book was interesting, which is why it's still got a good rating from me. But even in you'll see it when I put it up on the screen, I even said in my reading journal, I'm annoyed at myself for denying myself from reading the first book and the second duet of the main series for this book. And I also said, like, this was a beautiful story, but could be skipped. I don't feel I needed this story to know anything further about the series as a whole. But in saying that, it is a beautiful story and still worth a read. So I just don't think that you have to worry about reading this straight away. Read the entire 6 books, the 3 duologies that are coming out in that series, and then go back to this if you want, because I don't feel it is super, super important to the series. That's just my personal opinion. Next up, we have my favorite book of the month, and I was so scared to read this book because I've read the rest of the series and I enjoyed the first book. I probably rated it too high back then. I didn't really like the second book, but I've loved the third book, and apparently there's a 4th book coming out, and now I'm very excited for it after reading this. But The Darkest Temptation by Danielle, Laroux, I freaking loved this book. Although we didn't really get any crossovers with the characters from the first 2 books like we did in the first 2 books, I thoroughly enjoyed this. This follows Mila and Ronan. Mila is the daughter of a Russian mafia boss, and Ronan is the head of the current Russian mafia. Her father always denies her from going to Moscow because she was born in Russia, in Moscow, and her father has always denied her going there and never really given her a reason why, and just denied her from going. When she ends up running away and goes to Moscow because she wants to learn about her family and her life and where she's from. When she gets there, some very strange things start happening. She ends up having someone chase her and run straight into the arms of Ronan, and little does anyone know that Ronan has a vendetta against her family. And I'm not going to tell you why or anything like that, but she literally runs straight into the arms. So in this you have mafia, captive captor, age gap, forced proximity, enemies to lovers. And I say enemies to lovers because I always say in romance books you can't have true enemies to lovers, but in a dark romance you can. And it's purely for this. For the fact of he has a vendetta against her family, he hates her, and then they become lovers. So you have the enemies to lovers trope in this, and I feel like dark romance is the only type of romance outside of romantasy that you can truly have enemies to lovers. So that's that. This got a 5-star rating for me and a 2 chili spice as well, because the spice was really, really nice. And also I loved the ending of this. This had a third act breakup, but it wasn't because of a conflict. The way that this third act breakup was done, I actually enjoyed it, and that's a rarity for me. But it wasn't like a stupid miscommunication trope or stay away from me, I'm no good for you. Like, it wasn't any of that. It was super different, and I think the way it was worded and the reason why the third act breakup came about was necessary for the story, and it was done very well compared to every other third act breakup I've ever read. Again, this got a 5-star and a 2 chili spice rating from me. Okay, and next up is my first ever DNF. I'm going to use my pretty trophy one rather than my author's copy. Yeah, so this is my first ever DNF, and I hate that I DNF this book because I'm actually good friends with the author of this book. Now, I have read a book by her this year and I loved it. I actually beta read it for her and I absolutely loved the book. I read it in like an hour and a half. It was kind of like a novelette, not a novella, but it was just like a small little standalone book. I think it was about 150 pages or something. It was fairly small, and I literally read it in an hour, and I was obsessed with it. I thought it was such a good book. I couldn't get through this. I got to 34% and I was like, nah, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And it was the first spicy scene and I was like, no. Not the story, but just, I couldn't connect to the characters as individuals, and I didn't see the connection between the characters. So when they got to their spicy scene and it started, I was like, nah, like I gotta put it down. And I understand why there wasn't a huge connection between the two of them, because it is, again, it's a mafia type romance. It's based in Sydney, which I loved because I'm from Sydney originally. But you've got the mafia type romance and the captive and captor, age gap. She's in her late 20s, about to turn 30, and he's 40 something, I believe. And it follows Banks and Hazy. Hazy has had a really, really rough childhood and upbringing. She ran away from Melbourne when she was 16 and just fled the situation that she was in. The day she fled and everything happened, she actually ran into Banks, and Banks let her go and kind of lost her. And then they find each other again in Sydney later on, and he has decided that she is his and he doesn't want to let her go, which is where the captive captor comes in. But it kind of moved a little quickly for me, where I feel like they didn't have enough time to build any sort of interaction to make the spicy scene work. And in comparison, so I'm going to compare it to Darkest Temptation. In the Darkest Temptation, the FMC and the MMC were in each other's faces for like 3, 4, 5 days straight and built some type of connection first. These guys had met face to face 3 times before he kidnapped her, and I just found it moved too fast. Now, like I said, I loved the book that Ivy wrote. What was it called? Her Muse by Ivy Graves, that I read earlier this year. I loved that. Like, I devoured that so quickly. So I just think it was this particular storyline, and it's nothing against Ivy's writing. It was just, the storyline was, I just couldn't connect to the storyline. That's all it was with this particular book. So obviously I didn't give this a rating, and I didn't give it a chili spice because I DNF'd it at 34%. Okay, so because I am filming this a day before May's actually over, but I'm not going to finish either of these books before May's over. But I am currently in the middle of a reread of Onyx Storm. As you guys know, Book Bestie and I are doing a reread. Book Bestie and I are doing a buddy read. I'm doing a reread. He's reading it for the first time. Also, I'm so sorry about the lighting. It's just gone really overcast. But yeah, so I'm in the middle of this. We are up to like chapter 35, 36, maybe 37. I've got to read chapter 35, 36 and get up to 37, I think. That's where Book Bestie's up to. And yeah, so we have like this much left, which is super exciting. There is a book that I want to read before we finish this book, so I don't end up in a reading slump. As you can see, my new TBR for this month, I want to read Crown So Silver, but this book we are currently in, and I'm also reading The Cruel Prince by Holly Black because I could get this on Kindle Unlimited. So I started this on my Kindle last night. I think I'm up to chapter like 3 or 4. It's a nice small book. I should be able to finish it in a couple of days. I actually was not that intrigued reading the back, but I'm more intrigued reading it. So yeah, they're the books that I'm currently reading as well. That is it for my May reading wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have read any of the books that I read this month, let me know your ratings on them. Make sure you keep them, any reviews you put down there, keep them spoiler free. That's all from me for today. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you like the video and share it as well, because that really helps me get my videos out there. Like I said, comment down below if you did read any of the books that I have read and what you thought of them and your ratings on them and your chili spice rating on them. Also make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I'll make sure they're linked on the screen and in the down box below. Also, if you do want any annotated books from me, I will link my Etsy shop in the description as well. That's always there, as well as my Fable Goodreads. Not that I ever do my reviews on there, but anyway, wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a lovely day, a lovely night, a lovely evening, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Mwah.